Everybody's just like glued to their phone, sitting there in a group of people, like scrolling their phone when they should be having a meaningful connection with somebody.
And we are unhappier, failing marriages, failing relationships, and feeling lonelier than ever. That seems very counterintuitive.
There's so many things that just like remove us from human connection, and it's to make our life easier and more effective and save us time and do all of these things. But we become so comfortable in doing that, then we don't go and pursue relationships and connection.
I'm sure it will work.
In all black, I'm in mourning.
The funeral for yourself.
They don't care. Say that.
They don't care, she says. If you're editing this, you're going to have to wait till we actually start. A word from our sponsors.
I'll clip that in at the end. I'll say my piece. As you were, 60% of Americans hate their lives.
It's not the statistic.
Just kidding. Okay, we're starting
Okay.
now.
Relationship success is at an all-time low.
Makes sense.
Not just marriages, like friendships too. I was reading something over the past few days and I found it quite fascinating. Here's a few statistics that will really scuff your sperries. Roughly 40% of marriages fail. I think we all kind of gathered that. 60% of Americans feel lonely, and 17% of Americans report having less than 6 close friends. When you hear me read that, what comes to mind? Granted, we're talking about marriage and friendship, but they're one and the same when it comes to dynamics. What do you think of when you hear those numbers?
People are glued to their cell phones and have no social skills.
Okay. Tell me more. Tell me more about the lack of social skills in society.
I think when you go out in public to a restaurant, cafe, even at a park, you go outside and everybody's just like glued to their phone, sitting there in a group of people, like scrolling their phone when they should be meaningfully or like having a meaningful connection with somebody. We don't talk to people out in public. We'd rather look at our laptop. Everywhere we go, we have headphones in, or we're glued to something. We're distracted. Mm-hmm. We don't practice connecting with other people or having conversations. It's easier to text on our cell phone than it is to go up to somebody at a coffee shop and start a conversation. And we're so weird about it that even if somebody comes up to you at a coffee shop, we're immediately like, what do you want from me?
Yeah.
Because nobody does it. It's just so out of place these days. So like when you read off those statistics, a lot of people work from home. Mm-hmm. You go to work all day, even if like you don't work remotely or you don't work from home. You go to work, you come home, maybe hang out with like 1 or 2 homies, if that, and you don't really carve out any time in your life to build friendships or have relationships. So I don't know. What are your thoughts about it?
It's interesting you say that. I think it's fascinating that we have more mediums of communication nowadays than ever, and we are fundamentally worse off in relationships and lonelier than ever before. Like, you can go back and look. I was looking at some of that data. I think it was talking about the 70s, and it was like maybe half of this. Like, all of the statistics were fundamentally in half. And I look, and I'm like, in the last 50 to 70 years, we've developed cell phone technology. We've developed social media apps. The phone is completely different. Like, you had to, have you seen the videos of like the original phone? Where it was just like, so you have that. We have radio, we have TV. Like, there are so many mediums of communication nowadays that to see that we are afforded the privilege and the luxury, really, of having multi-utility formats for communication, and we are unhappier, failing marriages, failing relationships, and feeling lonelier than ever. That seems very counterintuitive. One may assume or one may think that if I give you more tools to accomplish a objective, your likelihood to success would be higher. That's typically how it works. Give you more tools to build your body or build your business or build whatever, a skill set. Usually that means it's easier to create the objective. And we are living in a world where that doesn't exist. Do you think it's only technology, Or do you think there are other parts of society that are actually contributing to it culturally?
I don't know if I have a fully formed opinion about it. Maybe if you start with your own thoughts on it, we can go from there.
So example, like, is technology the only thing that contributes
I don't think
to life?
anything is ever just
Sure,
one specific reason.
sure. What else would contribute to this poor communication 50 years later? What do you say? You made a great point around we have our headphones in. It's like not kosher to walk up to someone in the coffee shop. Like, why the hell are you bothering me? What else contributes to it?
I think we're very padded and isolated. So I might stay on like the technology
Yeah.
topic a little bit, but let's say you're somebody who early 20s works a remote job. You're at home a lot of the time. You get Instacart, Uber Eats, and DoorDash all the time.
Are you speaking from experience?
Well, I do it, but like I'll
Yeah.
go up and sit with people at a
Sure.
coffee shop. Like I love to flirt and play everywhere I go with people. So I don't fall in that camp, but I don't like grocery shopping. And I would much rather order shit to my front door. But like we have all of these easy conveniences. Everything's getting faster. Well, why would I go to the mall when I could just order Amazon Prime? So we get further and further removed from having to like experience social interactions. I look at little kids or maybe even teenagers, they can't even look a waiter in the eye to order food off a fucking menu. But you have no issue pulling up your mom's phone, punching in Uber Eats and ordering food to your house. Like we're so padded and don't put ourselves in situations to have communication with others, experience that discomfort, learn how to feel a little bit uneasy, lack the confidence and do it anyways. I watch people when I'm out in public and it's like, you don't even make eye contact when you're talking with somebody. So maybe it's not just social media, but like there's so much convenience. You go to the gas pump. I'm going to pay at the pump. I'm not going to go inside and talk to the cashier.
Yeah.
There's so many things that just like remove us from human connection. And it's to make our life easier and more effective and save us time and do all of these things. But we become so comfortable in doing that, then we don't go and pursue relationships and connection. It's like in business, so I'm going to buy back all of my time. Okay, cool. So you buy back all of your time and you do nothing in a day and you feel absolutely miserable.
Yeah.
I have all this convenience, but then I don't go out and I have like no social skills whatsoever. And like you see it in teenagers who are experiencing that. You communicate on social media, you're on technology, you're scrolling your phone. I also think that social media skews our perception of what is real. Your algorithm is curated to everything that you engage with. And it's not like what you like is going to show up on your feed.
Sure.
So if you think about that and you see there's so many different ways you could take this, but with relationships, you have this like romanticized idea of what something should be. And then you close yourself off from anything that isn't that. Or you get all of your entertainment here or your connection,
Right.
and then you implement AI. Like I have a friend who has a 12-year-old who was like, I have an AI boyfriend. And she was like, what the fuck is this?
You have a friend who has
a 12-year-old who said, I
have an
AI boyfriend. And she just about fell off her chair. But it's easier.
I'm tempted to cut the episode and mute this person. That's how I feel right now. The fuck?
But that's like an example. It's so much easier to sit there and go back and forth on your phone with somebody that you don't have to see face to face. And it's just an illusion. So I don't know if that answers your question. It's like, I just see the way that we're living and it's like we get further and further removed from participating.
Yeah, I can definitely see that. I think there's been a lot of evolution in society too over the last 50 years, right? Like as you were talking, I was like, okay, like there's more and more ways of convenience, for lack of a better term. If you're looking at the modern world, there's also changes in the way we behave at a family level and then in a work level too, where you find in today's day and age with inflation, with everything going on, most households, both parents work. Most households, like, the kids aren't always able to get the full influence of the mom and dad. They're going to daycare. They may not always have grandma and grandpa there, right? You then factor in, okay, and in thinking about like relationships, if mom is at her job and dad is at her job, like, where is the time not only for the family unit but for the two of them to facilitate a relationship? So now you create tiers and layers, right? There's the family dynamic, there's the husband wife or the mom dad relationship, and then you look at them and it's like, okay, those two are already hard enough. Where's your time to have friends? Who do you have to facilitate space with? And that's the perspective in all this that I find most interesting is I don't disagree with anything you said about the technology. I think we sometimes don't look at like the fundamental stuff, which is like, how do family units work in modern day? The number of people I'm aware of who are married, have kids, and both parents have to work, the luxury of having one person at least being able to stay at home, that's not really a common luxury anymore. I don't know how it was for you when you were growing up, but there was plenty of people that I met growing up where that luxury was there because, well, you could live on a single person's income. Nowadays, that's in there. It's very rare. It doesn't mean it can't exist. It's just it's not. I don't find it to be to the same volume of people as I did when I was growing up.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that creates its own series of constraints. The thing that I was thinking of, and to go towards what you were saying, where it was like kids are too tied into your technology, or you're kind of alluding to the fact that your friend's daughter or 12-year-old is an AI boyfriend. I think parents have this is something I've noticed. They seem to have a very rigid approach as to how they let their kids interact with technology, and I actually think that's the bigger problem. I don't think it's that technology inherently inhibits a child's development or ability to create relationships. I think how you welcome them to learn how to utilize technology is the bigger problem. And if you are underdeveloped as a child when it comes to your relationship or your dynamic with tech, of course, by the time you're 18 and you have no friends, it makes sense that you're emotionally inept. I looked at even friends of mine that I went to college with. It's like we grew up I was in college from 2011 to 2015. Instagram was like it was just starting to hit all the college campuses in 2012. And I see how much it's like frayed some of my friends' perspective on what reality is. It's like that people's perception of money, people's perception of it's all been skewed. If you're not an influencer and you drive a Ferrari and have a big house, you fail that life. Like, that's the perspective of a lot of people. And so when you have all these like conjoining factors and your perspective on all these things is so, I don't even know what the word is, but
Discombobulated.
I don't even think that's a strong enough word for it. It's like you're almost like delusional. There was another thing. I was on Twitter before I came to podcast, and it was like, I don't know if it was like Gen Z or it wasn't millennials, either like Gen Z or some other group of people right after our age demographic, but their perception of what you need financially to live a high quality life and do the things you want. It was like our generation was like, yeah, if you make like $200K a year, like you can live an incredible life. Like, that's the perspective. For Gen Z, it was like, yeah, if you make less than $60K a month take home, like your life's fucked. I'm like, what in the fuck is going on with people? $60K a month? Like,
Yeah.
So you think about how skewed people's perception has become.
If you factor in, like, my mind's kind of going down a rabbit hole.
Yeah, of course.
You're skewed by social media. This is what you perceive success. I need this in order to have any level of status. Cool. You also lack social skills. Now we factor in online dating.
That's its own conversation.
You feel grossly inadequate, like you're not succeeding in life because you're not meeting this standard without seeing the actual numbers. And that a lot of it is fabricated. There's a lot of money in the world, but like a lot of the shit you see on social media is not how it is presented to be,
Yep.
you feel less than and unworthy and holding yourself to a standard that's not even real. And you have minimal tolerance for discomfort. And now I push you out into the world to go communicate with people. No shit, you're not going to make eye contact with somebody. You're awkward and uncomfortable to be around. But you have just such a low perception of self based on something that isn't even real. And it just becomes this like, yeah, just mess.
Yeah.
I went to the coffee shop the other day, not a normal one that I go to, and I walked up to the cashier to place my order. She just stopped, looked me dead in the eye, didn't say anything, and waited for me to talk to her. And it was like the weirdest interaction. I was like
Are you good?
you're literally paid to be like, hey, like, how can I help you? What
Yeah.
can I place? No social skills whatsoever. And I was okay with it. I was like, we're going to stand here for like 15 seconds and just awkward silence while I make dead eye contact with you. And then finally she like kind of looked at me like, are you going to say something? And I was like, placed my order. Didn't say a fucking word.
Yeah.
Punched my shit into the till, told me how much it was, slid the thing across. I paid, signed the piece of paper, and like that was our interaction. And I was like, what the fuck did I just experience? Nothing. So interesting. No part of you was like prompted internally to like engage in this interaction, which is interesting because like that's what's coming up in this conversation. Like, and then I remember looking back as I was waiting for my stuff, and then she's like immediately scrolling on her phone. It's like, one, if an owner saw that, they would be floored and be like, what the fuck is that from a customer service standpoint? But it's like you have no social skills and like just blatant disregard for customer service and interacting with people. It was very interesting to experience.
Yeah. There's a lot of things that I think contribute to the lack of social emotional skills that we have in society today. I don't peg it to be, like, I do agree. There are plenty of people whose interaction with social and tech is not very good, and there's a host of reasons for that. But there's just such a, it's interesting to me when I talk to people who are like all wound up about AI and like, oh, it's going to take jobs. I'm like, the people who are actually going to do quite well and be just fine are the people who have social emotional skills, because you cannot replicate psychology. You cannot replicate emotion and creativity. And holy fuck, do we live in a world of people who are like fundamentally not creative. They couldn't think their way out of a box. And that's a scary thing to think about. And a lot of the conversations when I have them with friends of mine, when we'll have conversations around different things that we see, and this being one of those topics, I think a lot of times you just end up going back to how much changes in society over 50 to 100 year window, and how they all kind of like intertwine in such a unique way. And I think this is something that I realized recently, and I'd love your perspective on it. I don't think that technology or any one thing is the root. It just becomes the easiest thing to blame or point to for a lot of people when they hear these statistics, because it's the newest thing that created the most amount of variance inside of the system. Like, you can go back and look. It's like, if divorce rates are 40% of people fail, okay, what are the things that we've realized? There's optionality. If I don't like you no more, I can just be like,
Bumble.
right. I can just go slide in someone's DMs on Instagram. Like, if that's what you want to do, you can go do that. 50 years ago, my grandma and grandpa, once you're in it, you're not coming out of it. Like, you're married. There is no out. We are in a world where it's, and equally, you can say that's because of social, but then the question becomes, at the end of the day, those people were parented in a very different dynamic and household than we were. So I don't think blaming technology or pointing to it as like the root. It's definitely contributed to it. But there's oftentimes the thing that comes to the back of my head is like, how much has modern parenting changed? Because I think that's what's probably influenced this poor statistical assessment of relationships, having friendships, marriages. I think the real conversation is we have a parenting epidemic where we've lost sight of how to raise kids in a manner that teaches them the capability to be able to go out into this evolving world and actually stand for themselves.
I could see someone's argument would be, yes, so like grandparents' age, depending on like what generation you fall under.
Yeah.
What is the generation above boomers?
Let's do a little Google search. Generation.
So like my grandpa would have been, I think, above a boomer. He's got to be like in his 90s.
So we got traditionalist or silent generation,
Okay.
then baby boomers, then Generation X, then millennials, then Gen Z.
Okay, so baby boomers, would that age range fall in like 90 years old right now?
Baby boomers would be 1946 to 1964. The silent generation is 65, or Generation X is 65 to 80. The greatest generation is 1901 to 1927.
And the greatest generation, weren't they in World War II?
Yes.
Okay.
Let's see. Oh, there's a comprehensive assessment of what each generation is. All right, 1901 to 1927, greatest generation. 28 to 45 is the silent generation. Baby boomers is 46 to 64. Gen X is 65 to 80. Millennials or Gen Y is 81 to 96. Gen Z is 90, or iGen. That's a new one. I've never heard it be called iGen. Is 97 to 2010. Generation Alpha is 2010 to 2024.
They're fucked.
And listen to this. This is a new one. Born 2025 to 2039, you are now considered Generation Beta. What a bunch of bitches. Like, that's so sad. You were defined as a bitch before you came out.
God.
That's so sad.
I think one's argument could be Gen X,
So 65 to 80.
watched their parents as baby boomers stay in marriages
Post-war.
that they were unhappy in
Yes.
or didn't like the way that they were parented.
Mhm.
Maybe emotionally aloof, potentially abusive.
Yep.
And then turn around and then over-indexed with their kids, which would be millennials. And then millennials probably still saw the disconnect between their parents, whichever side of the scale it fell. And then that trickled down into Gen Z, which is under, or it'd be Gen Alpha.
Yeah, Gen Z or iGen is
Yeah.
97 to 2010. Yeah. I think
So the argument could be, it's like, well, my grandparents were married for 65
600
years.
years.
600 years.
Literally.
Like 65 years. And yeah, that's a lifetime of commitment, but you could also look at different parts of their marriage and be like,
Yeah.
I wouldn't want to stay.
No.
If that is what this looked like. So then people are more inclined to like split because they don't want to live what they saw with their families.
Yep.
And then this gets into an entire psychology conversation of like
Yeah.
generational trauma and
Yes.
patterns and not working through your stuff and just handing it down to the next person.
Yeah. I think what I've realized as time has passed is social media, the internet, technology, the change in household dynamics where it's like most people can't afford to have only one person work. Like, that's just the unfortunate reality. It's very much magnified core and root parenting and household issues. I don't think any of this has to do with the tech, and I also don't think this has to do with work. Now, is it fair to say work probably contributes to it? Yeah, 100%. Because when I read the divorce statistics, I was like, there's another thing that kind of popped into my head. I don't remember who it was who talked about this recently, but I think you and I were talking about it about a week ago. The most common place that divorced people end up finding their person is in the workplace. I think it was something like 85% of people like once they get divorced, the person they end up with after that divorce is someone they met or worked in the workplace. And I think we were kind of going back and forth on, that's interesting. Like, why would you end up in a relationship with someone you work with? But it goes into like the family unit where it's like, if you're a woman and you work at this company and he's a man and works at this company too, and both of you are in the same situation when it comes to the home, where like not both parents can be home, there's a shared sense of meaning and purpose, and like, oh, we're both in this together. So there's relatability. And like you could start to see why some of these cascades occur with relationship dynamics. And I think that's something that people often don't think about. And it's not to say that, hey, everybody in the workplace is going to end up in that situation. It's just you start to put together all the pieces and you're like, it makes sense. Like if you get divorced, there's a high likelihood that the person you engage with them is from the workplace.
Mm-hmm. There's also a statistic, I think it's 45 to 50% of infidelity cases start in the workplace.
Yep. 100%.
For exactly what you're saying.
Yeah.
So maybe you remarry and you find your partner in the workplace, but it's also the cause of up to like 50%
Yes.
of infidelity.
And I think for a lot of people, it's going back to what you said about the generational trauma thing, and not to go too deep into it, but if I haven't dealt with what I need to within, and I don't have a strong understanding and sense of self and meaning and purpose, not only for myself, but for the relationships in my life, particularly your significant other, when you don't have that for you and with the person you're with, and then you get tired and you feel unappreciated and all these things, it's very easy to see how in the workplace, oh, this person gets me. Mm-hmm. They know what it's like to feel unappreciated or underappreciated. They understand what it's like to be in this perpetual loop. But you're actually not actually dealing with the root problems, but there's comfort. So I can't remember who it was. Somebody posted today. They were like, he was using an example of women cheating, and what did he? Oh, I gotta find this. It'll be a very quick find. It was a great perspective on how cheating actually happens. Here we go. Women cheat with men they already know. It's not the girl's night out. It's the familiar face across the desk. Because seduction isn't a six-pack and stubble. It's safe, it's comfortable, it's familiar. And when I read that, I understood that, the purpose of that post was more to spark outrage for some of the people on social. But it's so true. When we feel safe and comfortable with someone and we are in an environment where we go home and then we just don't feel like anybody understands it, we can default to that, especially if we haven't understood who we are and what our own identity is and what our purpose is in life. And I think that's something that a lot of people are challenged with. So when I think about the relationship statistics and the friendship stuff, and even going to the friendship stuff, it's like you have no sense of who you are or what you're on this earth to do. And I think a lot of people struggle with that. So it makes sense. Misery loves company.
Mm. I think a lot of people build friendships in the workplace through proximity.
Yes.
And not values.
Yes.
So we work together. I see you. We laugh. We have some jokes. It's awesome. Proximity's there. But you probably wouldn't choose this person had you not met them in the workplace, and then you form a friendship with them, but it lacks so much meaning. Mm-hmm. I also think there's a layer of, because I work with this person, I do not feel safe to open up and fully be myself and express and share things because there's overlap at work, and that's where my financial security is. So we're just never going to get past a certain point anyways. Yeah. So you have no friends. The only friends you have are people you work with that you tiptoe around anyways because you fear that like this could cost you something. Mm-hmm. I think it is so important to go out of your way to find communities and people that are outside of the workplace.
Yes. Yes.
100%. And I don't think you need 20 people. I think you need a small handful of people that have similar values you get along with. When you walk away, mm-hmm. your cup feels full.
Yes.
Not drained. It is a value add to spend mm-hmm. time with this person instead of walking away feeling depleted every time you interact with someone.
Yes, I agree. I think we do a really poor job of learning how to develop relationships that fundamentally, like, you don't get anything more other than true relationship out of it.
Mm.
And I think because most people do not grow up in an environment where everything starts on the foundation of healthy relationship, they have a very hard time when it comes to who do they work for, or where do they work, or how do they facilitate the relationships. I'm going to say it from my own example and experience. As I grew up, there were certain people in my life that I noticed had really healthy work relationships, had really healthy business relationships, had really healthy friendships. I also noticed there were plenty of people who had like no friends other than the workplace. In the workplace, and the people that they were quote unquote friends with from the workplace, it was very surface level. It was like, let's get a beer with Jim on Thursday for the NFL draft, 1 April in the 10 years I worked there. And what I noticed in the very small handful of people that I would talk to and ask, it's like, how did you come to having these healthy relationships? And one of the common themes that I became aware of was everything starts at, can I be your friend? Can I build a real relationship with you? Because what you will find, and this is important for career, this is important for family, this is important business relationships, friendships. If the foundation of what you do cannot be friendship, you're going to have a very hard time meaningfully connecting and supporting people or building with them. I've learned that firsthand in all of my relationships. I need to be able to see that I can just be your friend at minimum. If I can't see that, there's no reason for me to work with you. I learned this in corporate too. Like every company I went to, minus one of them, I was like, I could be this person's friend. And I get it. People say, work and business and friendship and career don't mix. You will have a very difficult time in the workplace staying somewhere and succeeding if you cannot build meaningful relationships in the workplace. I have not met anybody who has done a incredible job and really enjoyed their career without building those meaningful relationships, including people in my own life. And so that's been a big thing that I've learned is like, if you cannot create that from a value standpoint, everything else will not work. There will be no career or joy for work. Like, dude, work is like half of your fucking life. Like, if you don't like the people you work with and can't have some sort of meaning, like, how the fuck what are you going to do? You're going to get to 80 and fucking have bags under your eyes and hate yourself? Like, I just couldn't imagine. I've been there and I understand why it happens. I just couldn't imagine like going through your whole life and not having a real relationship with anybody that you work with.
Mm-hmm. Very real for a lot of people. Yeah. A thought that pops up is remote work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You're not even in the office. All your relationships are through team yep. Chat, Slack, Zoom. Jesus. You don't even go to work. You work from home. All of your friendships that you make, mm-hmm. work friendships, might not even be in the same city as you.
Yep.
And you order Instacart and DoorDash, and you pay for your gas at the pump. Like, where is your social interaction? Mm-hmm. There is none. You get so deep into it that you don't even realize, like, the groove.
People just turn into like Hermit the Frog. There's just like, leave me alone.
I'll speak on behalf of this, and it might like land and register for somebody in the audience. I think when you get into that like hermit mode, because I can do that, especially if I'm like super obsessive with something that I'm working on. The longer you go without that interaction, it's almost like the more intolerant you are when you have to re-engage with it, yes. and you almost find it depleting.
Yes.
So you're in this little bubble and you're very isolated. Mm-hmm. You work, you do stuff, you do your things, you have all of your routines, and then you're asked to like come out of that routine mm-hmm. and engage with people. And I think that when you get stuck in this for a long time, this feels depleting because yes. you have no capacity. It's like you haven't gone to the gym in a fucking year and you try to do like a 200-pound squat, like you're going to die.
You just die, and then you're just like, I'm not going back for 2 months.
Yeah, then you don't want to do it and you don't stay consistent with it. So I think for somebody who's in that remote work era and you're trying to build friendships, it's like it's going to be uncomfortable. You're not used to doing it. And especially if you're super type A and very routine, like speaking on behalf of myself, what I would have given for someone to be like, yeah, you're probably going to like hate this and be super intolerant to it as you start learning how to engage with people outside of your work business online space. This will get easier, but like you have to do it in doses, even if you are uncomfortable with it. Show up for 45 minutes. You can leave. Do your thing. It will get easier. And then all of a sudden you'll be there for like 2 to 3 hours and it'll be okay. And then you'll want to hang out with people. But it's like with anything, like you almost have to condition yourself. You got to,
Yeah.
you know?
It's fascinating. I mean, I've done remote work at companies, and then obviously a lot of what we do is remote nowadays. And it's so fascinating to me how people who are in the remote world are just like, yeah, I just don't really want to see anybody after I'm done with my work day. I'm like, you didn't see anybody all day. You were in your corner doing nothing. And I think there's something to be said. There's going to be periods of your life where you're very focused on the work you're doing, and so you want the space to just decompress. And I totally understand that. I think I've gone through it. You've probably gone through it too, where you're working on things that you're very passionate about, and you're like, this is filling my cup, and this is my focus, and I'm very dedicated to this becoming this creation happening in a certain time window. So I'm not as apt to spend time away from this, and that's okay. Yeah, there are people I'm aware of who've been in remote work like their entire careers, 10 plus years. And I'm like, how did you do it? And I think it's a beautiful thing when you also create the space to facilitate like meaningful human interaction. We've both worked remotely together most of the last 3 years, and we've also been in person. And I think it would be fair to say that there's better quality work done in person.
Yeah.
And I think there's a lot of value to being able to create that culture in a work environment, especially for people who are remote.
I think something that is a disconnect working remote from in an office is when you're remote and you take a ton of meetings all day and you're talking to people, you get like tired of being on back-to-back calls, picking up the phone. But there's no break in between those calls to have human interaction with somebody else. So by the time you're done your day, you're like, holy fuck, like I don't want to go to so-and-so's house for an hour. But you're so disconnected from it. Because like when you're at work and you're around other people, you might take meetings, but you are actively interacting with people. In person. And I think it just creates this like bigger and bigger divide. Because I feel that on certain days where I have a ton of calls, I don't give a shit to do anything. I don't want to go out and see people. Don't care. Don't want to talk to anybody.
I think it's hilarious because I saw you this morning, and then I didn't see you the whole day, and then I'm seeing you now, and I got in, and she was just like, just can we get this done with? She had like a blanket on.
I was just taking 5 minutes.
I want to go to bed.
Yeah, we got a second wind. It'll be fine. It'll buff out.
Got a second wind, she says.
But I get it. I think it's something to be mindful of for people who work remote. Yeah. You're a fucking hermit. You're being a weirdo. You have no friends.
You're being a weirdo. I like how you ran right. You're being weird.
You're being weird, man.
Yeah. What needs to change?
With what? What part of
She's
this?
like, leave me alone. I'm done with the conversation. What do you think needs to change for people in order to breed or facilitate very healthy relationships in the environment we're in?
Jesus.
Or if you look at your own life, and you're obviously subjected to all of this, the technology, the isolation of remote work, you do work a lot, to be fair. Like, you're a
workaholic.
What do you find to be are like the big 3 keys to being able to facilitate relationships and have that space for yourself, not only with yourself, but with other people?
My mind goes step 1, exposure therapy. Hear me out.
Go cold.
Hear me out. I don't even think you get to meaningful connection without developing the capacity for potential rejection and being
Yes.
disappointed. So to me, it's like step uno, rejection therapy. Like exposure.
Rejection. First it was exposure therapy. Now it's rejection therapy. Okay.
I would put myself into environments that facilitated the opportunity for someone to reject me so I could learn to get the fuck over it. That is what I would personally do. I would go out in public and I would try to talk to somebody at a coffee shop. And I would accept the fact that some people are going to look at you like, why the hell are you talking to me? And like, you can read body language. Pick the person who's maybe like a little quieter and just like go up and like say something nice to them. But like feel the discomfort of, oh God, I don't know what this person's going to say. You don't have to pull up a fucking chair and sit down and be like, can I join you for brunch, my guy? But like,
You say that, but I'm aware of people who've done that with you.
I know, but I'm approachable.
She's like, I'm approachable. You
I'm
heard?
approachable,
Even though I
bro.
just said, leave me the fuck
I
alone.
went to the mechanic shop a month ago and everyone was singing "Oh Canada" to me. I make friends.
I
where
make
go.
friends is what, but you're in the other room just, leave me the fuck alone.
Yeah, it was at the end of the day of calls. Anywho, exposure therapy. I would deliberately put myself in situations to test the waters. I think that is healthy for people. I think when you do it a handful of times, it gets easier. You do it 20 times in a week, you'll be all good. That to me would be step one. Step two would be like, what do you value? And what do you like? And where are people potentially congregating that share those same values?
I have friends here too.
Yeah, like if you like art, go to a painting class with a group of people. If you like fitness stuff, go find like a runner's group. Look online, like get out into environments where there's people that are also putting themselves in spaces to connect with others. But when you get there, you'll actually talk to them because you've taken 20 no's in the coffee shop.
Take no's in the coffee shop. I think you just made a good point, though. You also don't take it too seriously. That's the other thing in all this. You can't take any of this too seriously. You'll kill yourself.
That's true. Just got to give them a little wink. Give them one of these.
Them getting advice from you, like the person listening to this who is
Bro,
like,
if they take my advice, smooth fucking sailing. I'll get you cured in 7 days.
God, we're gonna launch a dating course. Here's our friendship course.
Boot camp with Nat. Get your ass in there. Stand at the bottom of escalator. Give everybody a compliment. All 100 that come down. Stand there for an hour. You'll be fine.
Huh?
If I ever wake up one day and decide that I'm going to become a life coach, you
Oh
best believe my program is going to be elite.
Yo, that's insane. You best believe my program is gonna be insane. Step one, cold water to the face.
Yeah. Boot camp with Nat. We don't even have to run it for 90 days. 14.
It's like 90 minutes and you're ready to go.
Rock and
She's
roll.
like, it's like a cold plunge. You do it once, you realize what you got yourself into.
I don't know. Those are my thoughts. What about you?
That sounds so insane. I think I agree. I think you have to find environments to put yourself in. That's one. And then I think the other part of it too is you have to determine some sort of system of consistency for yourself and what that looks like. And you have to be okay with the fact that it's not going to be perfect no matter how hard you try to make it perfect. I think I've met a lot of people. I see this with friends of mine, especially one of my friends just moved here. But I've seen this with friends of mine where they move somewhere, like because they have a remote job and now I can live anywhere and do this job. So I'm going to move from where I am to fucking some other place. And then they'll like go try to meet people a couple times. Not my cup of tea. I'm just going to stay on this side of town and, hit a golf ball and, maybe go to trivia and that's it. And I'm like, that just seems, after two attempts, you just fucking gave up, right? And I think for anybody listening, regardless of remote work or not, regardless of relationship challenges with friends or significant, consistency is the biggest thing. It's like you have to be willing to put yourself out there, express yourself, and be willing to learn and take feedback from the marketplace, for lack of a better term. And if you can't take the feedback, it's not going to change. The funny thing in all this is the discomfort you're experiencing is less an indication of the environment and more an indication of how you feel about yourself. You don't like when someone tells you something about you that's negative. There's usually some truth in that. Maybe it's an opportunity for you to accept it or learn how to see it differently. You don't like interacting with people because it's awkward? Well, you're awkward. So I think the consistency of putting yourself out there, communicating, learning to express yourself, those are big things. And for the people who have relationships, whether they're married or it's with their friends, cultivating a cadence or some sort of opportunity to actually meaningfully connect with them, I think is a big thing. I have learned this, when I saw the statistics about people with less than 6 friends, I was like, oof, it makes sense. There are so many people I meet that they're like, oh, I have all these friends, right? And I'm like, what, like, how, define your friendship for me. Oh, I sent them a meme. When was the last time you talked to them? 2011. You've been sending memes for 14 years and haven't talked to them. But like we live in a world where so many of our relationships get quantified by that. Pick up the phone. Go see someone. Talk to someone. There are people that I have meaningful relationships with. I talk to quarterly. But that 30 minutes is better than, and I say this with all love and care for some of the people in these environments, it's more meaningful than 2 to 3 business dinners to meet someone to shake their hand who might in 6 years potentially have an opportunity that might play out. It's not in the quantity and it's not inherently just in where you are physically with someone. It's the effort that you put into it. I think that's another part that a lot of people struggle with. It's more in the consistency and being able to make the commitment to the effort to a relationship, whether that's with your significant other or it's with someone who's your friend. So, any last thoughts?
I challenge you to go
Just
take
stand.
no's in a coffee shop.
She basically wants you guys to come to Vegas. You go to the bottom of the escalator at the Venetian. She'll be there with a cowbell. And she'll be
I
like,
would.
all right, run it up.
I would do it, no problem.
That's your, we're going to launch this is an ad from one of our sponsors. We're going to launch a section with where every year we'll have like a week. You can come in. That's going to train you on communication skills. Cowbell, bottom escalator, front of the Venetian. Then she's going to have a bucket of ice cold water. So every time you fail, she'll be like, back in there.
Get in there.
Get in there.
Give it a little bum slap. Give it a little
You get a bum slap from that. There are people listening to this right now that are like,
I would
fiending
love a bum slap.
from that specifically. They're in your comments on Instagram. I promise you they'll be in your comments on the episode.
I would have a great time running a confidence boot camp. Put me in, coach.
Confidence boot camp. CBC at the Venetian with cowbells. Brought to you by Out of Office. Comment below on the video.
People be like, this is a great time. Yeah. That's all I got. Stay tuned. Within the next 12 months, I'll be running a confidence boot camp.
I can't wait.
You can come to Vegas, spend time with me in person. Fuck it.
If you're listening to this and you got this far, which all 110 of you have, please make sure that you subscribe to the Huddle.
Yes.
Come join the newsletter. We've got some fun stuff coming on YouTube. We've got fun stuff coming with the podcast, the newsletter. Stay tuned.
Handing out free bum slaps here for this behavior.